Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and happy National Coming Out Day. I am Michael Webb II and I am super excited to celebrate today with you. So, for some of y'all may know, 2 years ago I celebrated, well more so I honored today by making my own coming out video titled My Coming Out Story. Make sure y'all go take a look at it. But today I want to do a 2 years later Q&A about just my journey, about coming out, and then answer any questions that y'all may have. So, with that being said, I did go ahead and ask some of my friends over on Instagram if they had any questions for me to just gauge their opinion on like coming out, any advice that they may want. So, I received a couple of questions and that just they did. They asked me some interesting questions nonetheless, and I'm here to answer them with y'all. All right, so sit down, grab some popcorn because we will be here a while. I'm playing, we're not. Let's go ahead and get into these questions. All right, so I ordered these questions into 3 different sections. 1 is pre-coming out, 2 is making the decisions, and then 3 at the end will be post-coming out. So we're gonna go ahead and start with the pre-coming out videos. If you see me look down, it's because I'm looking at the question just to make sure I get the question correct. All right, so the first question is, when did you realize your sexuality and how did your parents feel about it? So I'm gonna answer the second part first. My parents, growing up, honestly, we never talked about it. I would say my parents ignored my sexuality for the most part, or they would more so assume that I was heterosexual, that I was straight. So I would say that's more about how my parents felt about my sexuality. It was not a topic of discussion at all. But I will say on the first half of that question, when did I realize my sexuality? I realized my sexuality at a young age. Before puberty, before all, the hormones get to rising and whatnot, I knew it definitely at an early age. I could be watching a movie, I'm looking at the men. Or I could be seeing, I'm looking at the men. Like, it was very much nature for me, not a learned behavior at all. So I will say that's how my parents felt about it, and that's how I realized my sexuality. Okay, so the next question is, what was my experience as on an HBCU campus as a gay man? I thought this was a really interesting question because I was closeted, of course, on campus. But the thing was, I also identify as a bisexual man in undergrad. For some people, like, bisexuality doesn't exist. Bisexuality does exist. Sexuality is a spectrum, and we also want to honor those who are bisexual, who identify as bisexual. So back then I did identify as bisexual in undergrad. So I don't necessarily understand the Black gay experience on an HBCU campus, but I can speak from the Black bisexual experience on an HBCU campus. So that's the experience I'm going to speak from. For me, truly, I had fun. I was finally able to let my hair down. I was finally had a time of expression. And honestly, I found my way. I found my community. My closest friend group in undergrad, we're called the SUS. So shout out to all of my SUS. And not everybody in the group identifies on the queer spectrum, but we were a family. We are a family. We still talk to this day. So I will say, on an HBCU campus, I was able to find people who love me. I found people who identified I identified for the first time in such a long time, especially being from Tulsa. I didn't really have many people that identified that I necessarily wanted to build relationships with, right? So when I got to college as an HBCU, my HBCU experience as a Black bisexual man, I feel honored. I felt like I had spaces that necessarily didn't even care about my sexuality, but I did have spaces too where I could freely express my sexuality. So I really had the best of both worlds there. And then it's funny because my next question is actually from one of my sus talking about why was that twat so hot in college. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? But this question is, it's a real question. And so I will say college was the first time that I ever truly had the opportunity to sexually express myself. And so, that's why it was so hot. But at the same time, not only did I experiment in college with men in women, I also had the opportunity to learn more about sexual health. Had the opportunity to learn about the things that I liked, the things that I did not like, and also set sexual boundaries. So, though I had a lot of fun in college, I was also safe during that time. And then the last question for this section is, when was the last time that I wasn't honest about my sexuality prior to coming out? This question was like, what? So this one actually had me sitting down and thinking, and like, I will say when it comes to me, I'm a wordsmith, so I'm gonna try to like change my words around to beat around the bush or get around certain answers. It's like half truths essentially, but for this question specifically, it was really hard to think about it because when it comes to like the last time I wasn't honest, I will say it probably was when it dealt with myself. So I was like, you know what? I'm sexually fluid. I am queer. I'm bisexual. Not negating what I just said, but there came a point in time where I was no longer sexually attracted to women. This was long after college. This was maybe like a year or two after college when I really realized like I solely have like a sexual attraction towards men and men only. And so when I figured that out, I still kept up the identification of bisexual, of sexually fluid when I realized, well, I think I'm probably still sexually fluid, but I will say more like back then I kept up the identity that I was bisexual when in reality I wasn't. However, it was like the fear of truly just identifying as a gay male that kept me from saying, oh, I'm gay. But I would say, yeah, right before I made my coming out video, so around that time period was the last time that I wasn't 100% honest about my sexuality. Okay, y'all, so those wraps up my questions about pre-coming out, and now let's get into the questions around making decisions. So I have 3 questions about making the decisions, which were, well, the first one's actually a 2-part, so I have 4 questions. That's 8. I have 4 questions, 2 and 2. Did you feel the need to do one-on-ones with family members or more one large announcement? So for me, personally, it depends. It really depended on my relationships that I did. And so the way I made my decisions was, also too, if you watch the coming out video, I'm gonna link it, don't worry. So on my coming out video, I mentioned that I had a lot of different coming out moments. And so these one-on-one conversations were my coming out moments. My first coming out moment was me coming out to my then best friend in high school. Back then, I had my first like romantic connection, emotional connection with this guy, and I was like, oh my gosh, who can I talk to? I need to talk to somebody. I don't know who I can like express this to, but she was the one who I trusted the most in that moment, and like she really carried me through and like really helped me understand my feelings for him, which I really appreciated. And then after that, I had like another coming out moment. One of my good friends, he clocked my tea while we was driving, back when Instagram would let you see who liked what. And he was like, so I see you be liking dudes' pictures like midnight around. I'm like, oh my goodness, like you really in my business right now. But like I said, it was a good friend, so I told him. And once again, I just felt like those one-on-one conversations, I needed to have one-on-one conversations when coming out because of different contexts that I was missing in my conversations, but also to later on, I saw that it allowed my friends, my family, my community to love me a little bit deeper. Then on the flip side, I did feel the need also to have one larger announcement because I exist in so many different spaces. Like I mentioned, I have my sus. Of course, they already know. But then I have like different communities that I had in the past. Then I also had different affiliations. I just felt like one video, it lets everybody know like, hey y'all, literally in my video, hey y'all, I'm gay. That's that. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. But no, I really just want to allow people a different look into my life because I feel like everybody just sees the mask that I put on every day, not necessarily what's behind the mask. So my coming out story was also me taking off the mask. Then the next question would be, what advice would I give to somebody that's planning on coming out? So if you're planning on coming out, congratulations. But I also want to just say, if you're planning on coming out, really understand your why. You probably already know your why, that you, whatever. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But yeah, so really understand your why, and you will have to stand firm on your why after you come out. Not necessarily to explain yourself or explain your decision to people, but also but it will be more so around, it might be a dark night, it might be a lonely night where you get to say like, why did I come out? Like, for real. But then you have to reflect on your why, even if you want to write it down somewhere. And for me, my why was that so I can have deeper connections with people, but also too, I mean, I was unsure the night that I came out. I was like, do I really want to do this? And actually, that leads us into our next question: what advice would I give to someone who's unsure about coming out? Was So when I came out, I was like very unsure. I didn't think that I wanted to. I thought that it was cool to make a video, right? But I didn't think that I needed to release it. But I meditated, I prayed, and I kept just hearing and seeing like, release the video, release the video. And for somebody who's unsure about coming out, I will say, like, also understand your why. But for both people who are planning on coming out and who are unsure about coming out, not just understanding your why, but also, do you have community? Like, yes, you may have people that love you now, but are you sure that after the fact they're going to still love you or be open to a deeper connection with you? So those are the things that I would more so be looking towards, really making sure that you have a level of community. And it may be that you go find people who are already out and you go ask them like, hey, what has your experience been like? Or, hey, I just need a friend in this moment to really like walk me through this process or just be with me through this process. So yeah, it will be around community and truly just understanding your why. And I think that covers both for those who are planning on coming out, congratulations, and those who are unsure about coming out and just knowing, and I'm sending those who are unsure about it, I want to send you clarity, and I also want to send you some light in wherever you are. All right, y'all, we are in the home stretch now of the questions. We've made it to post coming out questions. And so let's do a temperature check real quick. I want y'all to go ahead and like this video if y'all are still with me, if y'all are like in the comments, but also too, if y'all have any more questions that y'all want to ask me about post coming out, pre coming out, something that I mentioned today, go ahead and drop it in the comment section below. I don't mind doing part 2 Q&A. Trust me, it'll come before next year's National Coming Out Day. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into the last 4 questions. So starting off with, was it hard telling your parents, I love you, boo? Love you too. So was it hard telling my parents? Honestly, I did not tell my parents. My parents found out. Going back to the idea of my coming out moment. So those were 2 different coming out moments as well. In both moments, actually, I was inebriated, which kind of sucks. So when it deals with my mom, she found out I was, like I mentioned, I was inebriated and I was drunk. Okay. So I was very prideful. I was like, I'm sexually fluid, I'm bisexual, I'm queer. I don't even think I said bisexual. I think I said I'm sexually fluid, I'm queer. No, I didn't see that. I said I was sexually fluid. So even on that moment, it was just sexually fluid. Yes. So in that moment, I led with pride. I did not lead with love. And then same situation with my dad. I wasn't drunk, I was high. And I was like, and we were talking over the phone, so I'm not giving a care about this conversation at all. Like, it is what it is. I don't live with y'all. Kind of being borderline disrespectful in both moments. And I will say this, I truly do wish that I had the courage to talk to my parents prior to them finding out about my sexuality, so that we would have been able to really just sit down and understand each other and not have to be reactive when it comes to like rebuilding trust with each other and whatnot. So yeah, honestly, it was hard after the fact, but again, I wish I had enough courage to tell them before. And then the next question is, as a Black man, do you think it was harder to come out? Honestly, race did not play a card in my coming out at all. I mean, for the most part, it didn't play a role in it. Mainly, my coming out dealt with, it was hard for me to come out because of my legacy. Well, my family's legacy more so. I didn't want to taunt my family's legacy of being like the only gay person in the family. I didn't want to come out and then lose my different accolades. I didn't want people to see me as anything less than successful. I didn't want people to be like, oh my gosh, Michael's gay. Like, you taking this title away from you, you're taking this title away from you. So like for me, that really um, those were the things that kept me from coming out. Like those were the things that made it really hard for me to come out. So the next question is, what is the biggest change that you see in yourself since coming out? I always looked at myself as a fun person, right? I always looked at myself as a good time. I always looked at myself, as somebody who's loving. But I do feel like after coming out, I'm more happy. I am more open. I'm more expressive. And so one of the biggest changes that I see in myself, like I believe in myself. And I really had to get to a point where I was like, you know what? There's a reason why I was chosen to be gay, why I am gay, right? And I had to just accept that, you know, life does not happen to us, life happens for us. And I believe that this happened for me so that I can be here in this space right now, but also so that I can exist in other spaces. And I mean, that leads us into the next question. How has coming out helped your confidence or benefit your career? Truly, like, I walk into rooms more confident now that I know that I'm showing up as myself, now that I know that my journey to personhood is more authentic, now that I know that when my coworkers and my peers say, bring your authentic self to work, I am. So back in the day, I used to do some work in the political and government and like nonprofit space, but now full circle, I'm back in those spaces, but not just as a black man or a black person. I am there as a black gay man. So when it comes to LGBTQ plus rights, I'm in those rooms too. I'm able to not just speak on behalf of my community, but I'm able to bring my community into those rooms. And that's one thing that I truly love. And I think that has benefited my confidence and has benefited my career, because everything that I'm doing now is truly rooted in community, it's rooted in love, and it's rooted in authenticity. And I mean, I think that was a great question to end off on. So those are all of my questions that I have to y'all. Once again, I just want to say happy National Coming Out Day to those who are participating, to those who are celebrating. I also want to say thank you to those who practice allyship day in and day out. I just want to say a big I love you to my community, to everyone involved, and know that you're not alone. So without further ado, y'all, happy National Coming Out Day one more time, and keep on living.